Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 14 of the anime series Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. And we got a brand new snazzy OP and ending song and animation for this episode, being a little more than the half point of the series. And some very interesting aspects to that is we have some new characters showing up in the OP. Now, I'm somebody, I've said before that I'm only sort of cursorily familiar with the Gundam franchise on whole, and there have been many different anime series and that kind of thing, and but I have, in my venturing to learn more about it, encountered images of maybe one or two different characters from different aspects of the franchise. You know, this character like blonde hair and wearing a mask and seeming very malevolent. And I've heard in the early going of this series, you know, you had Farid being sort of compared to a character like that. But I find it quite interesting that that's what this series is pulling out for us. We actually have a clear-cut villain, the guy who wears a mask. He's in the OP now. He's in the PV for the next episode. And the way the PV for the next episode is sort of, you know, edited together, it almost led me to suspect, could Biscuit's older brother be this guy, you know, something like that? Or would it be something more clear-cut and easy to figure out, piece together, like, oh, maybe it's Gylo, maybe it's Farid, you know, that kind of thing. It is interesting, in this episode, we find Farid is still on vacation with Gylo's little sister and everything. And Gylo is very much chomping at the bit to get vengeance for the losses they've sustained, for being sort of, you know, shown vulnerable, had their asses handed to them by Tekkadan previously. He wants to get after Tekkadan, you know, while Farid is away, the mice will play kind of scenario. And that's just interesting to me, like, and the whole concept, one aspect of this show is it's just lacking in the sense of subtlety, what subtlety is. At least in this episode with Fumitan, I mean, I think I'm one of the first people who voiced, you know, that sort of concern that there's something going on with Fumitan. And in subsequent episodes, a lot more people have been, you know, catching on to that and talking about that, speculating along those lines. And in this episode, I mean, the subtlety is out the window, because every scene you have with Fumitan, she's just sort of like, what am I doing? How can I do this? How, you know, from the start of the episode, she has the orders, which is basically, you know, it's her responsibility to assure that Cordelia is where she needs to be for this assassination plot to go without a hitch. And, you know, that's basically because Tekkadan is now coming upon the Dork colonies, and it's all interesting. Like, the sense of revolution, you really have people, you know, posturing and trying to create a war out of this entire scenario. And while we are given hints as to who it is that set all this up, you know, Tekkadan has come into these colonies and they have a reputation ahead of themselves as being the Valkyries to Cordelia's, you know, sort of whole march to war. That's what they're basically being told, all these workers who are working very much under the thumbs of the royalty and the wealthy of Earth, the Earth governments and everything like that. And the only hope they now have is this reputation of Tekkadan being the Valkyries to that cause. For Cordelia being, you know, whether she becomes the martyr that is so planned, or whether she is the living embodiment of that revolution, that's what they now consider her to be, and they're going to be taking up arms. I mean, we see that the whole delivery of goods and services, you know, that kind of thing, it's actually militaristic mobile suits and weaponry and everything like that. So that is absolutely twisted and compelling that it's being turned this way. I mean, the idea of, you know, the concept of making Cordelia a martyr to the cause was in and of itself very sort of compelling and intriguing. Like, but my thought constantly was, well, what will be the surrounding form and function around that? What will be the outcome of that, you know? And now we're seeing basically that the whole plan was to push war. You know, it's very much sort of an allegory for the governments of our real world, that they see the money in militarizing and going to war and going to other countries and bombing the hell out of them, stealing their oil, all these different concepts. It's like on a much grander fantasy, mecha, sci-fi action scenario, but that's what is going on here. You know, Mars is that sort of, you know, third world country in a sense to the equivalent of the first world, that is Earth. And they're like this minor syndicate, you know, as long as they can be ruled, as long as they can be turned into slaves and everything like that, and they are workers to the cause, the fat cats and the big wigs back on Earth can sit back and sit pretty. But there are going to be those in the government that are like, well, this is only going to last us so long. We need something that can earn us money. We need something that can, you know, money can be made out of it. And what better than using tons and tons of worker fodder as soldiers to a cause of war, you know, that kind of thing. And like suddenly this just got hella real, you know, like Tekadon. Little do they even know what the hell they've gotten themselves into. And you see Orga really reacting to this. They're being fired upon because, of course, Gjallarhorn gets word of this. It seems like everybody's manipulating everybody else. And just as soon as they realize, hey, we delivered weapons into the hands of revolutionaries or wannabe revolutionaries, Gjallarhorn is right there to pick up the slack and all hell's breaking loose. I have to assume there are higher-ups in the government and things like that that are posturing and positioning all these players on this grand sort of chessboard, you know, and using them all for this perpetual war machine, putting that into action so that they can make money and, you know, sit pretty and sort of the balance of power. I'm sure there's going to be some corruption in the balance of power, as we've seen Farid himself is trying to get on the inside of Gjallarhorn and mess around with it. So it brings me back to that cat in the OP with the mask. Who is this person going to be? Is it going to be Farid in a disguise? Is it going to be Gylo in a disguise? Again, Biscuit's brother, I don't know. You know, and then with Fumitan, like I say, the lack of subtlety in her really mulling over what choices she has made. She's reflecting back on the past of having raised, in a sense, Cordelia. And there's almost a point of internal conflict there that I personally don't understand. Like, why she is in such conflict. How could I have not followed orders and gotten Cordelia where she needed to be for them to take her out, make her the martyr to this cause of a perpetual war machine and all these things? And like, she's reflecting back on how close she has been to Cordelia. Cordelia has, you know, treated her as a confidant, much more than her parents, who, again, her father tried to sell her out, so no sort of qualms there, understanding why that is. But I mean, it's just really uber fascinating to me, like, to try to get inside the mind of a Fumitan that is not sure why she's compassionate toward Cordelia after all the years she's spent with her. We have not as yet seen Fumitan displayed as being like a gangster Yakuza affiliate. We haven't gotten any sense of her having infiltrated, you know, the Bernstein family with this as the impetus all along or anything like that. So, I mean, if we had some idea, some concept of her having malicious tendencies and knowing all the while what her sort of form and function is to take Cordelia out or be part and parcel to that plan, seeing that plan through to its culmination, then okay, I would see why it is that she has conflict, because she feels for Cordelia. And that whole aspect in the aftermath of Cordelia's kiss with Mikazuki, and Mikazuki seems completely oblivious. Like, I don't even think that act went any further than in the moment for him. Like, I don't think there was any thought or any, you know, consideration on his part what that might mean to Cordelia or whatever like that. Like, he was just very much in the moment, very impetuous, this move that he made to kiss her. And Cordelia is carrying the weight of that. Like, she's not sure how to feel about that. She's not sure. I mean, she's already talking to Fumitan. I got kissed. Should I be thinking about marriage? You know? And this, I liked this aspect of Fumitan's nature because she just breaks out laughing. For all of that very unsubtle, sort of ominous, you know, characterization we see of Fumitan in this episode, we see a very human aspect of her right then and there. It's like the closest you get on display for why she might be feeling toward Cordelia. And it's just the whole idea that Cordelia kind of subverted the plans just because she wanted a girly day out shopping. And Fumitan had no choice really but to go along with it. And of course you have Biscuit and Mikazuki and Atra going along for the ride. I kind of wish we had spent a little more time in the shopping environment, because it seemed like something Atra was really excited about, and I kind of thought that was cute. You know, this is something they don't really get to do that often. And again, playing with Biscuit, you know, the idea that we find he's from these colonies, but he and his little sisters were taken by the grandmother back to Mars, and the idea that he has a brother, and the brother, like, what's going on with this cat? As soon as he gets the call, he's excited, but then when he finds out Biscuit's with Tekadon, he's like, oh shit. You know, like, I guess he knows what's going down. I don't know exactly where he's working or who he's working with. I think they may have said, but like, it did lead me to suspect maybe he has ties to Galahorn or something along those lines. Like, he knows that somebody's trying to slam Tekadon or whatever it is. And it seems per the PV, he might even be scolding Biscuit, like, what the hell are you doing? You idiot. Tell us what we need to know. Tell us the inside secrets. That's the impression I get, you know, without knowing exactly what's being said. So, I mean, so many layers to this episode. The thing, again, that stood out to me the most, though, was that lacking subtlety in Fumitan's being involved, being very much, you know, sort of the closest representative of this movement to turn Cordelia into a martyr, to take her life. And she obviously for a while now has had reservations. This is finally the answer to all of those scenes where we've all been like, what's going on with Fumitan? What more does she know? Who is she aligned with and everything like that? But I do have to wonder, because as I say, we don't have a lot of information to go on as yet. I don't feel like she's a gangster, a thug, or something like that. I don't feel like she's malevolent necessarily. She seems to me to be following orders and wanting to follow orders, but obviously there is a very human heart at the center of that, and that's why this didn't go to plan. This didn't work out. Even though this revolution, this upstart revolution, seems to be vomiting itself all over Tekadon and everything, and Odoga has the ship, you know, ordered away because we can't be caught in the middle of this, but they don't even have a chance to escape. They're stuck in the middle of it as we leave off with this episode. So what penultimately is going to be the next step, I don't know. But I'm highly intrigued and fascinated to find out. I'm highly intrigued to find out who this masked guy is. I'm assuming he's just going to show up and we're not going to know from right off the bat who he is. I think it would be that much more intriguing if we did know. If we saw, you know, Farid or Gylo or whoever this might be putting on the mask and becoming a symbol, a la Nolan's Batman. You know, I have to be a symbol rather than a monster. I have to be an idea and a concept rather than something brute force in your face. And I think, like, it would be quite compelling to know as viewers that one of these characters is trying to become that. We do also see, you know, sort of an antagonist Mobile Suit, very sort of maroon colored or like a pinkish red colored, that I assume is going to be meant specifically to go against the Barbados at some point, and Mikazuki and everything like that. And all of that would be very compelling. I think it would be compelling just even if we don't know, even if it's a mystery to unfold, that we don't necessarily find out who it is until later on. You know, maybe Mikazuki takes him out and as the guy's bleeding, dying, the mask is taken off and it's revealed who the person is. But I think it would be that much more compelling to know at this juncture who it is and see them going through the process of trying to become this symbol, trying to become whatever. I have to assume it's an extension of this perpetual war machine that they're trying to put into motion, that they're trying to break down what is the status quo for Galahorn from the inside, the Earth governments. And this is all speculation on my point, you know, at this point, just based on what we have seen in this episode and the PV for the next. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Whatever speculations you might have as to where this could go, if you think I'm on point, thinking that's how it might be unfolding, whether or not you think we will know from right off the bat who the masked cat is, if you think he is one of the already established characters, a la, you know, Farid, Bowdoin, something like that, or if you think it's a brand new character that has yet to actually make their first appearance in the series. Love having the discussion and very compelled by all of this. And it's going to be interesting to see whatever fallout might come out of the revelation of what Fumitan has been up to, you know, especially for Cordelia. Like, it would be tantamount to war in and of itself, I would think, if Cordelia suddenly had to have that revealed to herself, that much as her father tried to sell her out, Fumitan, this confidant, this woman she grew up with and she has so much attachment to, was just the same as her father, was just the same in trying to see to her death. Whew. It's going to be a hell of an explosive reveal if and when that happens. So, yeah, as I say, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this episode, where you think it's all going and everything like that. If you loved it, if you hated it, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. And otherwise, it'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.